So thank you, candidate Heno, for doing this interview with us at Disability Rights Louisiana. We're doing this voting series with candidates so that people with disabilities can have a more informed decision when they go to the polls this election season. So before I get started with my questions, why don't you take a second to introduce yourself to our constituents and then we'll get started.
How much time do I have?
Um, about 20 minutes.
Okay. Okay. I'm Leilani Heno. I was born and raised here in New Orleans. I'm a seasoned business owner. I have created jobs for over 100 people. I've improved the quality of life for thousands of New Orleanians. I've negotiated contracts with for-profit, nonprofit, and Fortune 500 companies. My degrees are in marketing, management, finance, and statistics. I have a master's in business, and I'm a Goldman Sachs graduate. So business is obviously at the forefront of a lot of my decisions when it comes to the city. I do own a fitness company, and we do have a lot of access for disabled individuals. And it's interesting because as I'm reading some of your questions, I don't even think I promote myself enough that we do. So this is a good conversation.
Thank you so much. So for my first question, what steps would you take to make New Orleans' infrastructure and public spaces more accessible to all residents? And how would you ensure that people with disabilities are at the table when decisions are being made?
Okay. Across the board on my platform is to hold contractors of every source in our city accountable. So what I would do is I would put stipulations or measures inside of contracts before they start. I think the issue with our city is a lot of times we go back and we're fixing things instead of when a new project starts, all of the ADA requirements should be built in. That should be something that's mandatory in anything that we build and anything that we redo. You're going to modernize a building, all of these things need to be added in. The other thing that doesn't make sense to me, and this is going to cross over disability, it kind of goes housing. If you think of the Justice Department, in business, we call it focus groups, but in government, it doesn't seem like they ask people. I can tell you what I think you might need, but I'm kind of guessing or I'm going by what I think that I see. I don't live your life. So to not have you at the table doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to most business minded people, but that to me is, I don't see how we can create policy without your input. So to me, it seems like it should go hand in hand. I do realize that it does not, and it's unfortunate, and that needs to change.
Thank you. How would you support economic opportunity for residents with disabilities? And what steps would you take to ensure that jobs across the city, including city jobs and contracts, are truly inclusive and equitable?
First, we're going to hold contractors accountable, like I said. We can also offer incentives to businesses that hire more disabled individuals, right? So that's one thing. Another thing that we want to make sure is that we enforce the equal opportunity standards that we should be enforcing already, and we're not. So that's something that, and I also think we could take some of the barriers away for businesses and for disabled people to make sure that we connect, right? So I think those are some good ways to do that.
Thanks. So what is your vision for ensuring that residents with disabilities can access safe, affordable, and accessible housing in every neighborhood of the city? And how would you address both affordability and physical accessibility in housing?
Just like I was saying about housing, it goes across the board, right? So if we prioritize housing by giving funds for ADA compliant projects, that kind of ties in both things. Initially, when I read your question, I thought to myself, if we gave incentives to projects that are closer to transportation, that sounds wonderful, but it would make more sense to make the entire city accessible. so that, because if you tie it in, if you tie incentives, this is my thought process in my head. If I tie incentives to certain housing developments that are going to be close to accessible transportation, that's great. But then it kind of forces you to live only in those places. I've been to several cities. I travel a lot where the entire city is connected, and I know we're a little backwards on some things, but these are things that need to go across our entire city. So everything we build moving forward needs to have that accessibility kind of actually built in already into the system. And then you hold the contractors accountable, you hold the builders accountable, you make sure everything stays in. And then the way I want to track everything, we're tracking what contractors do the right thing versus the wrong thing. We don't have enough transparency in the system in our city at all. And if we're tracking these things, then we can see what contractors are doing their jobs and which ones are not. So that's another way.
Great. And how would you work to expand access to healthcare in New Orleans, particularly when it comes to community-based services? And what role do you see the city playing in preventing incarceration of people with mental health conditions?
Honestly, the same as homelessness. It's like we're using jails to service people mentally, and that doesn't make any sense. It's not a criminal act, but for some reason it seems like everybody's getting arrested. It's just really strange to me how we're doing this in our system. I think we need to expand more non-police response programs, first of all, to make sure that if there's something going on and there's a mental issue, that person doesn't need to be, and they're punished because they have a mental issue, and that seems to be happening a lot. So relying on jails for that is something that I think needs to be separated. And I think in our society alone, we just didn't know what to do with it, I think. And so anything that didn't fit, you just stuck in that one department, and that's not working. They're not criminals, So we actually need to redelegate our budget, first of all, and take more money away from adding more police. I'm big on community based policing. That's important to me. I want police officers designated to different neighborhoods so that who's in your community. And when you know your police officers, yeah, you're not as fearful when they're there. But I also want to free them up so that they're not dealing with mental health issues, and that we have somebody to deal with that specifically, so these people don't end up in jail and all they did was have a mental issue.
Right. Great. And then for my last question, how would
Question.
you advocate for more equitable access to Medicaid and other healthcare supports for New Orleanians with disabilities? And what types of policies would you support or oppose?
I would definitely ensure accountability so systems deliver for those who are most in need. That's important. But I'd like to strengthen in-home and community-based services. That way, again, there's that transportation thing that's happening where I can easily get up and get in a car or go for a jog. I can take my bike. I can go anywhere I want to in the city. But if the that's going to cost money too, to make the entire city accessible. If while we're working on that, if we have more things available in home, it makes it more convenient and more efficient for the person that you're actually trying to serve, instead of trying to make it, convenient for the city, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Thank you. So that is all for my questions. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we complete this interview?
I'm happy that you asked me to this interview. I did not even know you guys were doing the question. I don't know if this is the first time. If you did, I know the last time I ran for office, I didn't get to talk to you guys, and I didn't know you guys were there. I think this needs to be something that's more talked about, to be perfectly
Mhm.
honest. And so I'm just grateful that you even reached out. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you so much. And best of luck this election season.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Have a good day.
Have a great day.